Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to take a look at the latest pistol from Staccato, the Staccato C. I just hit the 2,000 round mark with this particular pistol, so we're going to talk likes, dislikes, pros and cons, and we'll also take a look at the individual components and see how they've worn after 2,000 rounds. Alright, Staccato C, pros and cons. Let's start with the cons. First and foremost, and the biggest one, is price. This thing as configured is about $4,000, and that's a lot of money for one gun. I'll just leave it there, but that's far and away the biggest con to this thing. Second, lack of mags. The mags are fine, they've done well. You can see they're roughly the size of a Glock mag, so you know, they're about as small as they can be, and they're fine. They just can't buy them. They're expensive, that also sucks, but they've been sold out since this gun came out, and that blows. Third con, Staccato is a boutique-y, small, mass producer firearms, so the third-party support isn't really there like for a Glock or something. So things like holsters you have less options, basically. That's kind of why I bought this one, because it was available now and it could work with a certain light. So I got the Streamlight as well because it would work with the holster. The light's fine. My biggest gripe with it is this clamping screw comes loose after maybe 100 to 200 rounds, which is pretty annoying. It doesn't come off the gun, but it does get loose. So that's pretty lame. Next con, front sight. The fiber optic sight is fine. The issue that I have is that the edges are relatively sharp and they just dig into the holster whenever you kind of are sort of finding that groove. It wants to dig in there and catch, and I've already had to kind of sand away some almost like ruts that have been formed from the sharp steel. It is steel, but from that front sight post. So that kind of sucks. And the last thing is just 2011s in general. 1911s, they're not a Glock. They require more maintenance. So you gotta clean them and oil them every 500 rounds, I think is what Staccato recommends. I've found that at around 300 rounds, depending on how rapidly you're shooting in succession, right? But that's when I can feel the slide a little bit more sluggish as it strips around on a new mag. It just doesn't go as quick, and you're like, ooh, this thing is starting to get a little thirsty. So I have wiped it down just for the video. Usually I'm running these things pretty wet, but so those are the cons. Aside from that, this pistol is pretty much all good. So let's talk pros. So for me, surprisingly, reliability. I've shot 2,000 rounds through this thing, mainly 124 grain CCI Blazer brass and 147 grain Federal American Eagle, and I have had zero malfunctions of any kind. No failures to feed, extract, no stovepipes, none of that. Not even a bad primer. So that also speaks to the reliability of that ammo. But I've been surprised by the fact that I've had zero malfunctions. Next up is the trigger. As anyone knows about 1911s, they're heralded for their triggers. This one is no exception. It has, Staccato says, a 4-pound trigger, and it just feels fantastic, way better than the Glocks. Even with the performance trigger, it's still nowhere near as nice as this. Felt recoil is much less than on a similarly sized striker fire pistol. That's at least my opinion. And that's both with 124 grain, and for me at least 147 feels even softer. So I've been kind of slowly migrating to that bullet weight, kind of as a result of those things and the fact that this is a much heavier pistol. Felt recoil and the follow-up shots are much easier as well. So those are the big pros. Wouldn't be much different than any other 2011 pistol. I think they probably all share that in common, but this build quality on this has been great. I mean, there are some horror stories on some lower priced 2011s, and you kind of get what you pay for. This seems to be a pretty good entry point, but I have not shot many other 2011s, so I can't really comment on that too much. The weapon does feel special in quotes. You know, you're always excited to shoot it as opposed to, you know, a Glock is kind of just a tool. This feels a little bit more unique and is more fun to shoot. But all that being said, we're 2,000 rounds in. Let's tear this thing apart and take a look at how this thing is worn. All right, we've got the Staccato C disassembled, and we'll look at the individual components here. We'll start with the slide stop. So there's kind of three main areas of wear here along the slide stop shaft itself. And if I can get that to focus, in a couple different areas here. And then where the slide is actually shut off via the slide stop, it's kind of in that corner here. We've got the reverse plug. There's a couple bands of wear on the bottom and then along the bottom edge. And then on the other side, I don't know if that's going to focus on that, but you can see some wear here and at the vertex, and then the same thing on the other side as well, here and here. Everything else looks pretty good on this. A recoil spring assembly. So we've got kind of the guide rod thing, the spring. They both look basically brand new. And then we've got the guide plate that does have surface wear sort of all along the end face here. Nothing really alarming thus far. Next up is the DLC coated barrel. And very hard to see any DLC coating wear on this. Really the only place we're going to see that is on the edges of the lugs. So we just have a little bit of that DLC coating kind of worn off on those very edges. The polished ramps look pristine. The barrel is in pretty excellent condition, I would say, overall. The frame, really not anywhere to speak of. There is some visible wear on the inside of the hammer's kind of strike face, you can see, hopefully. But that's pretty much it for the slide. Nothing on the trigger, despite pulling that thing many thousands of times. And then finally, the slide assembly on the exterior. I think the really only wear I have is sort of on the vertex that gets jammed into the holster. So that's just some kind of early days of holster wear, where those multiple surfaces kind of coincide and form that vertex. Inside we have some kind of striation wear along, I forget what this surface would be called, but you can probably see that wear there. And then really the only other spot is, like the barrel, kind of on the edge of the mating surfaces of the lugs. So that's what the components look like after 2,000 rounds. I hope to get this thing fired up to 5,000 by the end of the year. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Peace out.